Okay, we're at 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. And call the hearing to order. Not that you're out of order, but my name is Scott Summers. I'm General Counsel here at the Department of Education, and I was appointed to conduct this afternoon's hearing, the subject of which are proposed revisions to Title 92, Nebraska Administrative Code, Chapter 21, entitled Regulations for the Issuance of Certificates and Permits to Teach, Provide Special Services, and Administer in Nebraska Schools, more informally known as NDE Rule 21. This date today is January 25th, 2018. We are located here in Lincoln in the State Office Building, 6th floor, Nebraska Department of Education, and it is the State Board Meeting Room. It is just now 1 o'clock on the aforementioned date, the 25th of January. The legal notice of this afternoon's hearing was published in the Omaha World Herald on December 20th, 2017. Real briefly, I'd like to read some guidelines for today's proceedings. First off, a Nebraska Department of Education staff member, Dr. Kevin Peters from our Teacher Certification Division, will describe and explain the proposed rule or the proposed revisions to Rule 21, and this will be followed by testimony from interested persons, if anyone wishes to testify. Each person presenting testimony is requested to, 1, state a concise suggestion or recommendation of what action you would like the State Board to take, 2, state the rationale or reason for that recommendation, 3, you may reinforce, but please refrain from repeating previous testimony. Shouldn't be an issue today, not that many people here. At the conclusion of the testimony, Dr. Peters will have the opportunity to respond to the testimony presented if he so chooses, and that will conclude the testimony. The testimony is being recorded, and the video will be made available to the State Board of Education via the public YouTube channel that we have, and that is available to the State Board before they consider the adoption of this rule, which is slated at present for the February 2nd, 2018 State Board meeting, the next upcoming meeting. Any written testimony should be submitted to myself prior to the end of the day, as in 5 p.m. in order to be part of the record of the hearing. I will say we received in advance a short statement from Senator Carol Blood, District 3 of the legislature, which I have here, and that will be made part of the hearing record. I will also tell you that at the conclusion of the hearing, our office puts out a hearing summary to the State Board of Education for them to review and consider at the time they take up this rule at their February board meeting. So, given that, I will go ahead and ask Dr. Peters to make a brief introduction or an introduction to the revisions. Dr. Peters.
Okay, my name is Kevin Peters, and I'm Director of Teacher Certification at the Nebraska Department of Education. The proposed revisions to Rule 21 is in response to a desire to capitalize on the unique teaching experiences found in the work background of military spouses or retired military personnel. We've created a new military teaching permit for 3 years, allowing the flexibility to address the mobility of the targeted group. Second, we recognize and rule that teaching college or community college students can be used in the future to renew a current Nebraska certificate. And 3, the input from Nebraska educators, representatives of the Military Spouse Organization at Offutt, and a Nebraska state senator representing the Bellevue area asking for a solution to the number of requirements needed for applicants with a military background wanting a Nebraska certificate was in our minds in proposing these revisions. Other non-substantive changes have been made to Rule 21 to increase clarity and understanding. We add an additional one at 005.31 that each applicant for a military teaching permit, it should say must instead of shall, and that change will be made to the hearing document. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peters. If anyone wishes to testify, please come forward and sit where Dr. Peters is. There is a sheet there. Yeah, I'll have you can go ahead and sign that sheet. We know you testified. There's a sign-in sheet. We would request that before you begin testifying, you fill out your name and whatever other information you asked for. It's pretty brief. And then please state the spelling of your name so that Brenda and I, when we do our summary, don't embarrass you and ourselves by butchering spellings and such. So with that, please.
And you wanted me to sign in on this sheet?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Mannion, M-A-N-I-O-N. I represent the spouses of Offutt Air Force Base. I'm the wife of the 55th Wing Commander at Offutt Air Force Base, and also an over 20-year educator myself at all levels of education. I'm obviously here as a proponent of this bill. Military spouses, we do know what we're getting into when we marry our military member. We know what life will entail somewhat, and we willingly do that in support of their service to our country. Like-minded people attract each other, and so teachers and nurses and social workers are often the spouses of military members, and a high number of those are teachers. What we don't know when we marry our military spouses is the amount of times we'll move, which is often every 2 years, if not 1 year. And then the hardship we will face reinventing ourselves and trying to work in those places. Teachers have an undue hardship. I personally believe education programs, legitimate accredited education programs, are not very different state to state. Teaching children is not very different state to state, and the tests required do not ask very different questions. They just have different numbers. And so it's an undue burden because we find ourselves having to recertify, and often in many states not even being able to apply for a job before that recertification. So by the time you've retested, sometimes 3 tests if you have multiple certification areas, each costing $100, each taking time, reapplying for your transcripts, each costing $20, reapplying for a license, which costs varying amounts of money. It's time consuming, it's expensive. I know teachers who have 5 different state certifications, and getting one more as they move to Nebraska is just a hurdle they often don't want to face. In hearing about this hearing, I've had just last night 5 teachers who are moving here this spring say, I wasn't going to teach when I looked at the Nebraska State website. I was not going to teach. If this bill passes, I'm going to apply to the school districts. And half of these teachers are hard to find teaching career fields. One's a science teacher, one's a math teacher, and one was an early child education, special education teacher. So these are teachers that the Bellevue and Papillion school districts have said they need, and these are people we wouldn't have coming into the workforce. We won't have coming into the workforce if this bill isn't passed, because just the stress of moving and at the same time trying to fulfill all those requirements immediately. I know it hasn't been immediate, but just that there has been time, but that's not how it seems to the spouse. And having a special military permit, recognizing the unique situation of these spouses, and frankly their unique contribution. Having taught in different schools in different states and in different types of children is beneficial to Nebraska, being in general a much more homogeneous state. It's beneficial to hire people who have had such a broad experience. And in my conversations with the districts surrounding us, they welcome military spouses. They want our military spouses to work for him because they have seen firsthand the benefits that they bring to the district. So I thank you. And was there something I was missing in my testimony that I'm supposed to add besides my name?
No,
Okay.
just your name and then your heartfelt comments, we got those, so nothing else.
Okay.
If you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to testify? Jay?
Thank you, sir. Great job. You can take it. Yes, sir. May I approach the bench?
Okay, I'll think about it. Thank you. Go ahead when you're
Good
ready.
afternoon. For the record, I'm Jay Sears, Jaysears, and that's also Staff Sergeant Retired, Nebraska Army National Guard, 43rd Army Band. 28 years of service to at least Nebraska. Anyway, on behalf of the 28,000 educator members of the Nebraska State Education Association, I recommend the State Board of Education approve the proposed revisions to Title 92 Nebraska Administrative Code Chapter 21, or as known as Rule 21, the issuance of certificates and permits to teach, counsel, supervise, and administer in Nebraska schools is listed in the hearing draft dated December 15, 2017. The NSCA appreciates the opportunity we had to confer with NDE staff on these proposed revisions. Many of these revisions have also been discussed at the Nebraska Council on Teacher Education, the advisory body to the State Board of Education. We believe allowing previous teaching experience in colleges, universities, and community colleges to renew certification is very important. The NSCA also strongly supports the implementation of a military teaching permit to allow spouses of military personnel or retired military personnel and spouses to obtain a 3-year permit to teach in Nebraska. Thank you to the Nebraska Department of Education staff for keeping NSCA informed and for providing their expertise in these matters. That closes my testimony. And I just realized I can now get a permit to teach when this passes.
That's very good.
Hopefully that won't change the outcome of it.
And we've got your testimony that you've also written that you read, and that will be made part of the hearing, record of the hearing in the summary. Anyone else wish to testify? I'd like to point out that our newly seated board president, John Witzel, has joined us. So thank you for coming.
Thanks, Scott. It's an
Sure.
honor, and what a great presentations by our testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume that's it. Okay. Okay, with that, we'll wind up the hearing. Brenda and I will certainly do our hearing summary, and we thank those who came for testifying. We appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.